All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the deep dive. You're out there grinding away, getting ready for the UPSC. So we're going to make it a little bit easier on you today.
That's right.
We're going to be talking about Indian infrastructure.
Yes,
It's one of those topics that's going to show up on both prelims and mains.
absolutely.
And we're going to try to make it as painless as possible, and you'll come out of this deep dive ready to rock.
That's right.
So we have a PIB release about the state of Indian infrastructure, and we also have the budget announcements. And so we're going to try to marry those two together.
Yeah, because a lot of it connects, like the budget announcements actually give us kind of the direction that a lot of this infrastructure building is going.
Okay, cool.
So it's really important for UPSC aspirants to be aware of both, not just for the facts and figures for prelims, but also for that big picture policy analysis that you need for mains, right?
Right, because infrastructure is kind of the foundation
Absolutely.
for any economy, but especially in India. There's such a huge emphasis on it.
It is.
So why don't we just start by why is it such a hot topic right now? Why is everyone talking about infrastructure in India?
Well, I think you're right. It has been a hot topic
Yeah.
for a while now, but particularly I think in the last 10 years. We've seen unprecedented development, right? They're building roads, bridges, ports, airports at a pace that we really haven't seen before. And I think the reason for that is it's not just about bricks and mortar anymore, right? It's about laying the foundation for long-term economic growth.
So connecting the dots, right?
Exactly. Connecting
They've
lots.
loved to see in the UPSC.
Yeah, it's not just about memorizing which highway goes where.
Right.
It's about understanding how these individual projects tie into that big picture of, India becoming an economic powerhouse.
So you got to be able to analyze and not just memorize.
Precisely.
And I think that's something that we really want to highlight in this deep dive, is showing you guys how to do that. So speaking of connecting those dots, why don't we look at what the budget 2025-26 had to say about infrastructure?
Yeah, let's get into the nitty-gritty.
The nitty-gritty, because, those of you out there getting ready for the prelims,
Yeah,
there's going to be some numbers that they want you to know.
definitely.
So the total investment in infrastructure this year is a whopping Rs 11.2 lakh crore.
Yeah, they really went all out.
Which is a huge jump.
Yeah, it's a significant increase from the previous year, for sure. And I think it sends a clear signal that, the government is prioritizing infrastructure development
Right.
as a key driver of economic growth. And they're putting their money where their mouth is, so to speak.
Yeah, so they're not just talking about it.
Exactly.
This is an area that they're focusing on.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that I noticed, and I don't know if you did as well, but
Yeah.
the Urban Challenge Fund.
Yes. That was a big one, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I don't know if you could just kind of tell everyone what that's all about.
Yeah, so basically they've allocated a massive Rs 1 lakh crore to this fund. And the idea is to really focus on developing our cities into, engines of growth. And, urbanization is a huge, trend in India right now.
Yes.
Millions of people are moving from rural areas to cities every year.
Yeah.
And this fund is meant to help cities cope with that influx. So we're talking about investing in things like public transport,
Right.
affordable housing, better waste management, really trying to make our cities more livable and sustainable.
Okay, so it's not just building stuff.
It's not just about the buildings, it's about the quality of life.
It's about making life better in their cities.
Exactly.
And that's going to be important as
Yeah.
more and more people move in.
Yeah, and for the UPSC exam, they're not just going to ask you what the Urban Challenge Fund is. They're going to ask you to analyze its impact,
Right.
What are the potential benefits? What are the challenges? How does it connect to other policies?
Okay, so you have to see the big picture.
You always have to see the big picture.
Okay, now this next one, when I saw it, I was like, oh, interesting.
Uh-huh.
But then I was like, what does this even mean?
Yeah.
And that shipbuilding is now getting infrastructure status.
Yes. I
Yeah.
saw that too, and I thought, okay, this is interesting.
What does that even mean?
So basically, giving something infrastructure status is like it's like a golden ticket from the government.
Okay.
It opens up a whole world of benefits.
Okay.
Right. So we're talking about things like easier access to financing, lower interest rates on loans, tax breaks,
Okay.
a whole bunch of incentives to encourage investment in that sector. And I think in this case, the government is really trying to give a boost to domestic shipbuilding,
Okay.
reduce our reliance on imports, maybe even, become a global player in the shipbuilding industry. So
Okay, so it's a strategic move.
it's a strategic move. It's not just about, oh, shipbuilding sounds important, let's give it infrastructure status. There's a larger game plan at play.
So it's a way to encourage investment in
Exactly.
that
Right.
particular area.
Precisely.
Okay, so we've talked about shipbuilding. What about for the flyers out there?
Ah, yes. Well, for those of you who prefer to travel by air, there's some exciting news on that front as well.
Okay.
The UDAN scheme,
Yes.
which stands for Ude Dishka Amnagrik, which basically means let the common man of the country fly. It's been revamped and extended for another 10 years.
Cool.
Yeah, so this scheme was initially launched to improve regional connectivity by making air travel more affordable and accessible, and it's been quite successful. You know, they've added so many new routes, connected smaller towns and cities to the aviation network, and they're planning to keep that momentum going.
Wow.
They're adding 120 new destinations
Oh, wow.
and aiming to connect 40 million more passengers to the skies over the next 10 years. So it's a big deal. And for UPSC aspirants, this is a classic example of a government scheme that you need to know inside and out. You know, what are its objectives? How does it work? What's the impact? You know, all of that.
It's not just about knowing the name.
No, it's about going deeper.
It's about how does it fit into, those bigger goals.
Precisely.
Okay, so we've kind of talked about why it's important. We've looked at the budget.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to kind of take a step back.
Absolutely.
And say, okay, what do we actually mean when we talk about infrastructure?
Yeah, because we throw that word around a lot.
Yeah.
But what are we actually talking about?
Yeah.
Right. So when we talk about infrastructure, we're talking about those long-term investments in the physical and sometimes even social systems that are essential for an economy to function. Right.
So what are some examples?
So we're talking about things like transportation networks, roads, railways, airports, ports,
Right.
energy infrastructure, so power plants, transmission lines, and of course, communication systems like telecommunications, internet, all of that stuff.
Right. So the basic things that you need
The very foundation, absolutely.
to have a modern society.
Precisely.
Okay, so it's not just like building a shopping mall or something like that.
No, we're talking about those large-scale, long-term projects that have a much broader impact on the economy.
Okay, so how is that different
Yeah.
than, those other types of investments?
So one of the key things about infrastructure is that it often has characteristics of what we call natural monopolies, right?
Right.
So what that means is that it's just not efficient to have multiple competing companies providing those services.
Right.
Think about, like, your electricity grid, right?
Mhm.
It wouldn't make sense to have 5 different companies all laying down power lines on the same street, right?
Yeah.
So you typically have one company, maybe a government-owned company, providing that service.
Makes sense.
And then another key feature of infrastructure is that it's largely non-tradable, right?
Yeah.
You can't export electricity or water in the same way that you export, say, manufactured goods.
Right.
So the benefits of infrastructure investment are largely contained within the country.
Right. So it's very much focused on, I guess, the country where
It's very country specific.
that infrastructure is.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's a really good, I think, kind of background
Foundation.
on what infrastructure is.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about the what and the why, but I think it's time to get to the cool stuff.
Yeah, let's see what's happening on the ground.
Let's paint a picture. Like, what does this actually look like in India?
All right, well, picture this. You're driving down a brand new 6-lane highway, cutting through the heart of rural India, connecting villages and towns that were once isolated.
Okay.
That's Faratmala Paryohana in action.
So this is that massive highway project, right?
Exactly. We're talking about 18,000 kilometers of highways already built and thousands more in the pipeline.
Wow, that's a lot of road.
It is.
Yeah,
and it's not just about connecting cities anymore. It's about bringing those economic benefits to rural areas, you know?
Yeah, like opening up access to markets, healthcare, education.
Exactly. And remember, the Pradhan Mantri Gramin Sadak Yojana.
Oh, yeah, that one's all about rural roads, right?
That's the one, connecting every village with an all-weather road.
Yeah, it's amazing how much they've achieved with that.
It's incredible. It's transformed rural India.
I remember reading somewhere that India has the second largest road network in the world.
Yeah, that's right. Second only to the USA.
That's got to be a logistical nightmare.
Right. It definitely has its challenges, but they're managing it, you know.
So it's not just building new roads, it's also maintaining the existing ones, right?
Absolutely. And the pace of construction is mind-boggling.
Like how fast are we talking?
We're talking an average of 33.8 kilometers of national highways being built every single day.
Wow. That's some serious construction happening.
It is. It's a massive undertaking.
So we've got the big picture with the highways, but what about those smaller but still important infrastructure improvements?
Oh, yeah, those are important too, and often they have a direct impact on people's lives.
Like, I don't know, remember those bio toilets on trains?
Ah, yes.
Small change, but
Huge impact. Huge impact. Yeah, over 80,000 train coaches now have those biotoilets, making train travel much more hygienic and environmentally friendly.
exactly.
And it's those kind of details, that you can really use to spice up your UPSC
Oh,
answers.
right, because it shows you're not just memorizing facts.
Exactly. It shows you understand the practical implications.
You're connecting those dots.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about roads. What about railways?
Ah, railways, the lifeline of India.
And they've been electrifying a lot of those lines, right?
They have, and it's a massive undertaking, but the progress has been phenomenal.
Like, how much have they electrified?
As of December 2023, almost 94% of broad gauge tracks are electrified.
Wow, that's a huge jump from just a few years ago.
It is, and this shift to electric traction brings a whole host of benefits.
Okay, like,
Well, for starters, it's much more energy efficient, reducing our dependence on fossil fuels.
good for the environment.
Exactly. Plus, it reduces operational costs, improves speed, and paves the way for high-speed rail in the future.
Oh, now we're talking.
Imagine zipping across the country at 300 kilometers per hour.
That'd be amazing.
It would revolutionize travel in India.
Okay, so we've talked about roads, railways. Now we have to talk about ports.
Ah, yes, the gateways to global trade.
Maybe not as exciting as high-speed trains.
They might not be as glamorous, but they are essential.
Yeah, for sure.
And India has been making great strides in modernizing its ports.
Really?
Yeah, our cargo handling capacity has more than doubled in the last decade.
That's impressive.
It is, and as a result, India has climbed to 22nd place in the global shipping rankings.
Not bad at all.
Not bad at all, and it's all part of this larger push to improve connectivity, boost trade, and make India a global logistics hub.
Okay, so we're seeing progress across the board, from land to sea.
It's an exciting time for infrastructure development in India.
Absolutely. And now let's shift our focus to the urban landscape. I mean, our cities are growing at an unprecedented rate.
They are, and that's where the Smart Cities mission comes in.
Ah, yes, the Smart Cities mission, a classic UPSC topic.
It is, and it's all about using technology to make our cities more livable, efficient, and sustainable.
So what are we talking about here, like flying cars and robots?
Not quite yet, but we are talking about things like smart traffic management systems, integrated surveillance, efficient waste disposal, and citizen-centric online services.
So using technology to make life easier.
Exactly, and the progress has been impressive so far.
Like how far along are they?
Almost 91% of the projects under the Smart Cities mission are complete.
It's amazing.
It is, and these smart cities are going to play a crucial role in attracting investment, creating jobs, and improving the overall quality of life in urban areas.
Okay, so we've got smart cities, but we can't forget about the basics, right?
Absolutely. Things like sanitation, waste management, those are crucial too.
Yeah, and I remember a few years ago, sanitation was a big problem in many Indian cities.
It was, but things have improved dramatically thanks to the Swachh Bharat mission.
Oh yeah, that was a big initiative.
It was, and it's had a significant impact.
Like what kind of impact?
Well, for starters, waste collection has increased by a whopping 97% in urban areas.
That's huge.
It is, and what's even more impressive is that waste processing has gone up from a dismal 18% to 78%.
Wow, that's a massive improvement.
It is, and it shows that the government is serious about tackling this issue.
So it's not just about building fancy new infrastructure, it's also about improving the essential services.
Exactly. It's about making our cities cleaner, healthier, and more livable for everyone.
And let's not forget about housing. I mean, affordable housing is a major issue in urban areas.
It is, and the government has been trying to address that through the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban, or PMAYU for short.
Right, the one that aims to provide housing for all.
That's the one. And over 118 lakh houses have been approved under this scheme.
That's a lot of houses.
It is, and it's making a real difference in the lives of millions of people.
Okay, now this one's really cool. I remember when only a handful of cities in India had metro rail.
Yeah, it's hard to believe now, isn't it?
It's like a completely different world.
It is. The metro rail revolution has transformed urban transport in India.
Like, how many cities have metros now?
The number has exploded. We've gone from just 5 metro cities to 23 in just a few years.
That's insane.
It is, and we now have close to 1,000 kilometers of operational metro lines across the country.
Wow, that's a lot of track.
It is, and it's not just about the numbers. It's about the impact on people's lives, reducing commute times, easing traffic congestion, and making our cities more sustainable.
Yeah, I can just imagine a map of India for the UPSC exam, with all these metro lines connecting the cities.
It's a great visual to have in your mind.
Okay, so we've talked about the cities, but let's not forget about rural India. Access to clean drinking water has been a long-standing challenge in many villages.
It has, but the Jal Jeevan mission is changing that.
Yeah, that's the one that aims to provide piped water to every rural household, right?
That's right, and the progress has been remarkable.
Like, how much progress are we talking about?
Well, rural tap water coverage has jumped from a mere 17% to almost 80% in just a few years.
That's incredible.
It is. It's a game changer for rural communities, improving health, sanitation, and overall quality of life.
So, from connecting remote villages to building smart cities, India's infrastructure landscape is undergoing a truly remarkable transformation.
It is, and we've only just scratched the surface. In the next part, we'll delve deeper into the specific government initiatives driving this boom, and we'll explore some of the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead.
Welcome back, everyone. We've talked about what infrastructure is and why it's such a big deal for India.
It's right.
But now we've got to talk about, how it all comes together.
Yeah, like who's making all of this happen?
Right, what are those key initiatives that are really driving this infrastructure boom?
Exactly, because it doesn't just happen on its own. There's a lot of planning, a lot of policies involved, and one of the biggest ones you've got to know about is PM Gati Shakti.
Okay, PM Gati Shakti. Now, I've heard that name before, but to be honest, it kind of sounds like a superhero.
Well, in a way, it is a superhero for infrastructure.
Okay, I like that. I like that.
Because it's this ambitious national master plan that aims to revolutionize the way we develop infrastructure in India.
Okay, so break it down for me. What does that actually mean?
Wait, imagine this. You've got all these different ministries working on different aspects of infrastructure, right?
Okay, like roads, railways, ports.
Exactly, but sometimes they're working in silos.
Okay, so they're not really talking to each other.
Not as much as they should be, but PM Gati Shakti comes in and says, hey, let's all get on the same page, let's coordinate our efforts, let's make sure everything's working together smoothly.
So it's like a big team effort.
It is. It's about bringing everyone to the table, streamlining approvals, optimizing resource allocation, and making sure that, our roads, railways, waterways, and airways are all interconnected, all working towards the same goal.
Okay, so it's not just about building new stuff. It's about making the most of what we already have.
Absolutely. And a great example of that is the National Logistics Policy.
Okay, that one sounds
It
interesting.
is. It's all about making our supply chains more efficient, reducing logistics costs, which ultimately makes our businesses more competitive on the global stage.
Okay, so it's like streamlining the whole process from point A to point B.
Exactly. And the results are already showing India's ranking in the World Bank's Logistics Performance Index has jumped 6 places.
Wow, that's impressive.
It is, and it's a direct result of these focused efforts to improve our logistics infrastructure.
Okay, so we've talked about PM Gati Shakti and the National Logistics Policy, but there are a few other big players we have to mention, right?
Oh yeah, we can't forget about Paratmala Pariyojana, that massive highway development program.
That's the one that's building all those amazing highways, right?
That's the one. Over 18,000 kilometers already completed, connecting remote areas, stimulating economic activity.
It's amazing how much they've achieved with that program.
It really is a testament to the scale and ambition of India's infrastructure development goals.
And then there's the Pradhan Mantri Gramin Sadak Yojana, which is specifically focused on rural roads.
Yeah, that one's all about bridging the urban-rural divide, making sure that even the most remote villages have access to all-weather roads.
Right, connecting them to schools, hospitals, markets.
Exactly. Over 7 lakh kilometers of rural roads built under this scheme.
That's like going to the moon and back, and then some.
It is. It's a phenomenal achievement.
Okay, and we can't forget about UDAN, the scheme that's making air travel more affordable.
Ah, yes, UDAN, connecting remote areas to the aviation network.
Bringing those smaller airports to life.
Exactly. Over 600 routes have been operationalized under UDAN, boosting regional tourism and economic growth.
Okay, so far it all sounds amazing, but I'm guessing there are some challenges too, right?
Of course, building infrastructure on this scale is never easy, and there are definitely some challenges that we need to be aware of.
Okay, like what?
Well, sustainability is a big one.
Right, we can't just build and build without thinking about the environment.
Exactly. So we have to be mindful of the carbon footprint of these projects, use eco-friendly materials, adopt energy-efficient technologies.
Okay, so it's about finding that balance between development and sustainability.
Absolutely. And then there's the issue of equity, making sure that the benefits of infrastructure development reach all sections of society, not just a privileged few.
Right, so addressing concerns about land acquisition, potential displacement of communities.
Exactly. We need to make sure these projects don't exacerbate existing inequalities.
Oh, yeah, that's a really important point.
And of course, there's the question of financing. Where do we get the resources for all these mega
Yeah,
projects?
it's got to cost a lot of money.
It does. So attracting private investment is crucial, exploring innovative financing models, and making sure these projects are financially viable in the long run.
Okay, so it's about finding those sustainable solutions.
Exactly. It's a complex puzzle, but the rewards are immense because a strong, well-planned infrastructure is the foundation for economic growth, social progress, and ultimately a better future for all Indians.
Wow, that's a powerful thought. And I think we've covered so much ground today. Hopefully everyone out there getting ready for the UPSC is feeling a bit more confident about tackling any infrastructure question that comes their way.
Absolutely. Remember, it's not just about memorizing facts. It's about understanding the big picture, the policies, the challenges, the opportunities.
Exactly. And always remember to connect those dots, just like we've been doing in this episode.
And for all the latest updates on infrastructure development, don't forget to check out the PIB website. It's a treasure trove of information.
Right. It's your go-to source for all things government related. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought. India's infrastructure boom is incredible. But what are those potential unintended consequences?
Ah, that's the kind of critical thinking the UPSC examiners love.
Exactly. So think about the environmental impact, the social implications, the long-term financial burden.
These are the questions that separate the good answers from the great ones.
And on that note, we come to the end of our deep dive into Indian infrastructure. We hope you found it informative, insightful, and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
And remember, your dream of cracking the UPSC is just a deep dive away.
So keep studying, keep pushing, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below if you have any questions.
Until next time, happy learning.